We're back with you here, everyone, on Gridiron. Hello, everyone, and welcome again as to Gridiron, the award-winning Gridiron. I'm Dr. Ron Poniewasz, and joined by Professor Larry Kelly, the varsity baseball coach at Neshannock High School and a member of the Luxembourg Garbett Kelly and George law firm. Thank you for joining us, Larry, as we are now into the quarterfinal round of the WPIAL playoffs.
Yeah, it's getting exciting. There were some magnificent performances last week by the teams and those players that you picked as athletes of the week for those teams. And Mohawk went down to the wire and unfortunately didn't pull it out, but certainly acquitted themselves well last week.
Same with Wilmington, heading all the way up to Erie to play Mercyhurst Prep. So first segment, we are going to tell you about the athlete of the week. And for print edition, it is going to be the Neshannock varsity volleyball team. And the volleyball team finished second place in the WPIAL playoffs. They took silver in the WPIAL championship game, losing in 4 games to top-ranked and top-seeded Freeport. Freeport, the number 1 ranked team in the state. And Neshannock opened that matchup by taking the first game 25-19. And from what I gather from a lot of people, Freeport doesn't lose too many games, much less matches. And Neshannock went up 1-0 on them. So it's not gold. You're not getting gold, obviously, as we know the end result. But I mean, that's a pretty good feather in their cap to take that first game, go up 1-0, put a lot of pressure on them. Second feather in their cap was the 3 losses that they had. They were all competitive, including game number 4, which Neshannock lost 25-23.
How about them Wildcats? What a great year they had. And, it hurts certainly to lose in the championship game, having lost a state championship game in baseball as well as basketball at Newcastle. But at the end of the day, it's the journey that you remember. You don't remember the final destination. You don't remember the final result. But 20 years from now, those young women will be talking about the journey, the different things that happened on their way to that championship game. And great season. It's not over yet. They're a resilient bunch. And they had a great year. How about those Wildcats?
Yep, and they're still writing that chapter of the book, too. Because they will have life in the state playoffs as they play Northeast on Tuesday night, tomorrow night as we film this on Monday. And if they win that one, they play again Saturday. So congratulations to the Neshannock volleyball team and best of luck in the state playoffs this season. Hopefully they get another crack at Freeport. For our purposes here on Gridiron, football show that we are, let's talk about 3 performances, Larry, from winning teams, one apiece. Let's start with Neshannock. Johnny Huff, 6'1", 180 pounds, senior quarterback, defensive back. Johnny Huff last week, 9 carries for 80 yards, 9 of 18 passing, 99 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 48-6 win over Burrell.
This young man's been doing it all year with his feet and with his arm. If opponents are going to beat the Lancers, they better figure out a way to stop this to Johnny Huff. And a lot of what he does is, after the play breaks down, he's just he's a fantastic athlete. He has great vision, and he's had a great year. This is about the 3rd time he's been athlete of the week for his team, and all well deserved. And they're going to have a tough sled against Washington. Washington was picked as the number 1 team in the WPIAL earlier in the year. They lose a few games, but they're here because they upset, and I can't think of who they upset last week. And so the Lancers will have to be on their game, but the game's at home, and that's a big advantage.
Sarah Catholic, Larry.
Sarah Catholic. They upset Sarah Catholic, right, and handily beat them. So it should be a great ball game on Friday night.
Absolutely. Union High's Braylon Thomas. Braylon, a 6'2", 180-pound quarterback, defensive back. He goes 22 carries for 138 yards, 3 touchdowns. He also had a 2-point conversion run. Passing, he was 7 of 12 for 117 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception in a 32-7 win over Burgettstown. Larry, we have quite a following at Union. A lot of Union supporters tune in. They like what we do. So be nice to Union. Say something good about Union, Larry.
Oh, well, how could you say anything but nice things about Union? They've had a great year, and Braylon Thomas is the real deal. I mean, again, this is about the third time for him that we're mentioning his name on Gridiron. 138 yards on the ground, 117 yards through the air. Fantastic, magnificent performance by this young man. But it should be no surprise, he's been doing it all year.
Yeah, and if you haven't had a chance to watch Union play, I've seen Union probably. I want to say I saw all their home games this year. Definitely multiple ones. He is a great athlete, fun to watch. Does a lot for his team with his arm, with his legs. He's incredible. So, we'll talk about it later on with our preview, but Laurel's going to definitely need to try and put a pretty good fence around him and contain him, because otherwise, that's going to be a tough game for Laurel to win if they can't contain Braylon Thomas. However, Landon Smith, another guy we want to talk about from last week, 5'8", 150-pound running back, defensive back, 12 carries, 134 yards. He scored each of the first 4 touchdowns that the Spartans got last week in a 53-8 win over Carmichael's. And as far as Laurel goes, Union's going to want to play really good defense against Landon Smith, because he is a very good running back, as I saw Friday night.
You think so? More than 10 yards a carry, 4 TDs. Once again, he's been doing it all year. And, Union had Luke McCoy last year, who was probably the best running back in Lawrence County, and maybe one of the best running backs in Western PA. And you're thinking, well, how can they replicate that? Who are they going to find to put up the kind of numbers that Luke McCoy put up last year? How about Landon Smith? This young man's been doing it since the beginning of the seasons, from the first game of the season. Fantastic running back, and he's had a fantastic season also.
Yeah, Laurel definitely had 2 fantastic running backs consecutive years. But I tell you what, on the surface, it's the running backs. But when you get to the meat of the situation, it's the boys up front opening the holes for these kids, because there's big holes that they're running through. And it's not just the fact that they're 11 on 4 or something. It's 11 on 11. And the guys up front are really doing their job, Larry.
No question about it. And Laurel dominated the line of scrimmage once again last week in their win over Carmichael's. And they've been dominating the line of scrimmage just about every week. So I always say, Ronnie, you get the right guys blocking, you and I can run the ball. Maybe not like Landon Smith, but you get the right guys up front, opening up the holes, and good things happen. And that's the key to winning high school football games. Control the line of scrimmage. Laurel's done it all year.
Yeah, we might not get to the end zone quite as fast as Landon. I'll be several steps behind him. You'll be timed with a sundial, but regardless, we can get through those holes for sure.
Well, here's the one thing I know: I can beat you in a race. So other than that, I'm not worried about anybody else.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, I'd like to see how we shake out on that. What do you think? Can we get any kind of support for that?
We'll do it for charity. A little 40-yard dash, Ronnie and Larry, and we'll take bets, and we'll donate the proceeds to charity. But listen, my man, I've seen you waddle down the sidelines a few times. So yeah, you better go get in shape if you're going to try me out.
Listen, I wear glasses. I don't know what you're looking at, but you're not seeing me waddle down the sidelines. That's for sure. All right. So athlete of the week for print edition, it's the Shenango volleyball team. Congratulations to them for coming up with silver in the district playoffs, and best of luck to them in the state playoffs, which start Tuesday night, Saturday again if they win Tuesday. And then for our Gridiron edition, we honored Johnny Huff, Braylon Thomas, and Landon Smith. All 3 of them will be on the Gridiron this week for their respective teams in the district quarterfinals. Coming up next, we have a couple separate segments, and we will tell you about our playoff previews, and we'll do that next right here on Gridiron.
There's one thing I learned growing up around here. People should look out for each other, be friends and neighbors that you can count on. So it bothers me when people who are hurt in automobile accidents get bullied by the insurance company. I don't let bullies run over my clients. I do what I was taught growing up. Step up, stand up, and speak up for those who can't. I'm Larry Kelly, and I'm a Newcastle guy.
We're back with you here, everyone, on Gridiron. First up, our first of two playoff previews, and we are going to go Class 2A first, and that is going to be the number 12 seeded Washington Prexies, 7-4 overall, and that's going to be at number 4 Neshannock, which is 9-1. That's a 7 p.m. Friday night matchup. Again, WPIAL Class 2A quarterfinals. And Larry, boy, Neshannock. Granted, they fell behind 6-0 early, but the roll just keeps going for the Lancers. 48-6 last week over Burrell. That team is just rolling, and they're rolling at the right time too.
Well, again, the key in high school football is to dominate the line of scrimmage. And Neshannock rushed for 309 yards, and they held Burrell to a net 66 yards rushing. When you can control the line of scrimmage, when you can dominate the line of scrimmage the way Neshannock has been doing it the last few weeks, you can't get beat. It's what high school football is all about. It's still about dominating and controlling the line of scrimmage. And the Lancers, for the last several weeks, have been doing it. And they did it again last week against Burrell. Magnificent performance.
If you had to put your finger on it, and I don't have the scores in front of me of the games that they played after losing to Beaver Falls, that's their only loss. That was a 22-0 loss to Beaver Falls. If memory serves me, there's only one game that it's even been remotely close or, competitive, and that was the Elwood City game. And even that was 3 touchdowns, I believe, 40-21 Neshannock. And I don't think at any point in that game were they really threatened to lose. So what do you think Neshannock has done since that Beaver Falls game to clean things up and to play their best football going into the post?
In the game against Beaver Falls, and talking to Coach Mangino, Beaver Falls hit a couple of long touchdown passes in that game. So it wasn't as if Beaver Falls dominated the line of scrimmage that game. They did give up a bunch of yards in Neshannock against the Tigers. They did. But, the game was really closer than the score indicated. So, hey, Neshannock's the real deal. You run it for 309 yards and hold your opponent to net 66 in a high school game, and you're going to blow them out. And that's exactly what they've done. They did it last week against Burrell, and they've done it for 2 or 3 weeks in a row. They're on a roll.
Mm-hmm. Johnny Huff is rushing and passing the Lancers to success this year. Johnny Huff's 161 carries for 1,651 yards. He has 24 touchdowns. He leads the county in rushing yards. He's second in the county in touchdowns, second behind Laurel's Landon Smith. Passing, he's 85 of 179 for 1,067 yards, 11 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He went over the 1,000-yard barrier last week in passing. Rushing, he had done that long before the regular season ended. The stipulation that the WPIAL uses is you're recognized for your regular season yardage. I believe there's 13 total kids that have went over 1,000 rushing and passing in the WPIAL. And the way they recognize it is it's regular season. But to be honest with you, Larry, regular season, postseason, whatever, however you want to look at it, that's a pretty special season for Johnny Huff, and he's only going to continue to add on to it.
That's you throw for 1,000 and run for 1,000. You're special, and I don't care when you do it. We had a kid last year, Chris Hood from Newcastle, who did it. You're special, and this young man is special, and he's been special since day one this year. And he's certainly the straw that stirs the drink for the Lancers. And again, a lot of what he does is after the play breaks down. So, he has great vision, great instincts, and all the athleticism to make it go.
A win by the Lancers puts them in the semifinals next week, and I believe that'll be a neutral site game But first up, they've got to take care of business at home against Washington. And Larry, it is a team that by seed, I don't think a lot of people were thinking that's who they would play. Because as we talked in a previous segment, Washington upset Sarah Catholic. So how does Neshannock get ready for Washington? Naturally, you don't want to look ahead when you have your own business to take care of, which last week was Burrell. But at the same time, if you're looking at the bracket in your spare time, coaches, and naturally, again, you don't want to look ahead, but maybe in your mind, you're thinking, okay, take care of business against Burrell. We'll get ready for Sarah Catholic. And then all of a sudden, everything's out the window. You're playing Washington.
Well, I'm going to just tell you something. Again, I think Washington at the beginning of the season, they were the preseason #1 pick in the WPIAL. They're playing their best football now. They didn't just beat Sarah Catholic, they dominated them. And we all know that Sarah Catholic's the real deal. They were the WPIAL champs last year, the state runner-ups. So the Lancers are going to have their hands full. Washington plays the game a lot like Beaver Falls, and so they better put their big boy pants on, because this isn't going to be easy.
That's right. Okay, that is the Neshannock preview. Come on back. We have one more preview to go, and that'll be the Union Laurel matchup. We'll do that next, right here on Gridiron.
There's one thing I learned growing up around here. People should look out for each other. Be friends and neighbors that you can count on. So it bothers me when people who are hurt in automobile accidents get bullied by the insurance company. I don't let bullies run over my clients. I do what I was taught growing up. Step up, stand up, and speak up for those who can't. I'm Larry Kelly, and I'm a Newcastle guy.
We're back with you here on Gridiron to close things up, and we have another playoff preview, and that is Union, #10 seed, 8-3, squaring off against Laurel, the 2 seed, which is 9-1, and that is in the Class 1A playoffs. And this game is going to be played at Shenango, Larry. These teams are familiar with each other. They're not only are they county rivals, they're Big 7 conference rivals. The Spartans won the first matchup 28-22. And if you've been following along with high school football all season long, you know that Laurel, in addition to their great record of 9-1, I guess you could put this under the term battle tested, because they've won, I think, 3 games where they've been trailing at some point in the third quarter or maybe even the fourth quarter, turned things around and won the game. That's no different for Laurel in that case, because they beat Union in overtime on September 23rd, 28-22, in a game that they trailed going to the fourth quarter.
This is going to be a great football game. They're not only conference rivals, they're old Tri-County rivals. The kids know each other. You see each other in and around the county. As a coach, I never liked to play teams from my conference. Once I got to the playoffs, I would prefer to play teams that we haven't faced before. There's just something about playing teams within your own conference that adds a little spice to it. I think the fans like it, but as coaches, I think if you ask both of those coaches, they would rather be playing somebody else. But this is going to be a great football game. You got great athletes on both teams. This will be one worth the price of admission.
Now, you talk from a coaching perspective about not seeing a familiar team. Naturally, is it because while you may have an advantage because you know them, they also have an advantage because they know you? There's no secrets, and now it's a chess match of trying to figure out how they're going to make their adjustments. Is that kind of how that breaks down, your philosophy?
I like to be laser focused and really focused on what we're supposed to be doing. When you're playing a rival, sometimes that other stuff gets into it. The fan bases tend to, the student bodies tend to get it. And there's a little bit of distraction that can happen in those kind of games. That's my feeling. I want to be focused on the team across the field. And I don't want to, I don't want the other collateral stuff to get involved and make a difference. And that's just my view. That's just my view. These teams are going to know each other. It's hard to play a team that knows each other so well on both sides. Look, there's going to be no surprises here, and so it'll be a matter of execution. Who executes better, and that will determine the winner in the game.
Level of determination for the team that comes up short in the first time. So that would be Union in this case. Would a team have more determination if they lost 45-6 the first time, or a team like Union that lost 28-22? You're naturally going to be angry and you want to get back at them, but you were so close, or the fact that, hey, we're not 39 points, worse than them. So which level of determination factors in greater in a game like this?
I think there's, look, when you played them tough the first time around, and you look at the tape and you see maybe where there were breakdowns, I think you go into the game with a little more confidence than had you been blown out. Athletics and sports, confidence is a big factor. I always say that most games are won and lost before the national anthem is played than any other time. And the reason I say that, if you're going to a game expecting to win, you normally win. There's a difference when you're going into a game and merely hoping to win. So I think both Union and Laurel are going into this game expecting to win. I think both of those teams are confident, and they're expecting to win. That's why this is going to be a great football game. You got great athletes on both sides. We talked about Landon Smith. We talked about Braylon Thomas, little Mikey Gunn. I mean, there's great athletes on both sides of the ball here. It'll be a great football game.
Yeah,
now,
absolutely.
One of the keys is going to be turnovers. You can't turn it over. You got to hold on to the football. And, oftentimes in a game like this, two evenly matched teams, turnovers are what decides the game. Yeah,
absolutely. Now, Larry, Laurel is used to this sort of thing, with the playoffs. Last year, they lost in the quarterfinals. However, Union has not been to the playoffs since 2017. So this is brand new to them. Big advantage to Laurel because of the playoff factor, or do you like a team that, is playing with house money and can go out there and play more free?
I don't think playoff experience makes much of a difference. It's all about the kids. I went to the WPIAL championship with a baseball team, and those kids had never experienced any of that. There have been other Neshannock teams who had been there, but not this team. To go through everything that we went through. It's the players, it's the kids, it's their mindset, and whether or not they've had playoff experience in the past, I don't think is a big deal. I really don't. I always like to say, you got big game players who just take it to another level, in the big games. They're steely, their determination is steely, their mental toughness it's beyond reproach. Their laser focus is just locked in. And those are the guys, whether they've been there or not, who normally win these types of games.
Sure. All right, Larry, we've got quite a topic here regarding this game, because, and I'll read you the stipulations from it. As the WPIAL puts on its website regarding the Class 1A playoff system, will be where our spirited conversation comes out, and we'll see if we can agree for a second straight week. These first few points, are common, and the 16 playoff teams are based on team records using section games. Top 4 teams in each section qualify for a playoff spot. Section champ in each section will host the opponent in their opening round of the playoffs. In all the other opening games, the higher seeded team will host the opponent in the first round and quarterfinals. Again, I repeat, in all other opening games, the higher seeded team will host their opponent in the first round and quarterfinals. Laurel is a number 2 seed. Union is a 10 seed. By rights, this game belongs at Laurel High School, and I know the reason why, and I don't agree with it. It is at Neshannock. Now, the WPIAL will tell you that we want the games to be on a field turf surface. Fine. Where's the WPIAL championship? It's at Acrisure Stadium, which plays on grass. Tell me how that makes sense. It doesn't.
It doesn't. No, you're right. It doesn't. But if you're going to justify it, you know, the young men want to play at Acrisure Stadium, formerly Heinz Field. And, you know, I think they make an exception. Now, I'll say this, as it relates to the Laurel-Union game, both of those teams are traveling about 1.5 miles. And so if the game was going to be played at a site that was an hour's bus ride from Laurel, then I think that might be a big advantage, you know. But hey, listen, you can throw a baseball from the football field to Neshannock and hit Laurel High School and Union High School. So, you know, for all practical intents and purposes, it is a home game for Laurel. You know, they're going to be playing it on a surface that won't be significantly, you know, altered because of rain or inclement weather. So I don't think it's a big deal. But you make a good point. You know, you don't make very many of them, but you made another one this week when you said, yeah, what's the explanation for playing a championship game on a grass field if you're not going to play a quarterfinal game there?
Yeah,
I can't argue with that. As much as I'd like to argue with you, I can't.
okay.
You make a good point.
Well, let me ask you this: being having the coaching pedigree that you do, if you, Larry Kelly, are angered by something that the WPIAL does in the WPIAL playoffs, and you have from Monday to Thursday or Friday between where you're at now and in the game, do you invest any time at all in calling the office and in getting it off your chest and just expressing the disappointment that you have, or getting on your computer and sending them an email? And it's not going to change anything. The game's going to be at Neshannock, but do you do that just to get it off your chest and to feel better, and just to say, you know what, I expressed my opinion, maybe it'll do something down the road in future years? Again, it's not going to do any good, but do you take that route or no?
No, I don't do. It's a distraction. I'm focused. I'm laser focused on the game. I don't have time to be calling a WPIAL and complaining about where I'm playing the game, because I don't think it's a big deal. Again, you know, Neshannock High School is about 1.5 miles from Laurel and might be 1.75 miles from Union. So it's going to be a great night. Both fan bases will be well represented, but no, I don't get involved in that.
You ever see the movie Hoosiers? As a basketball guy,
Absolutely, I've seen it about 30 times.
and you know the scene where he takes the kids out into the gym and gets Ollie on his shoulders and says, "Here, measure the basketball." Yep. Same thing. It's a football field. However, there's one difference. In Hoosiers, you knew going into the season that the district semifinal or whatever stage they were at, regional final, was going to be in that gymnasium. There was no, you know, playing games on you. Whereas this one, yeah, it's the same length of field. It's all that kind of stuff. It's just at a different venue. So you could break it down however you want. Maybe Brian Cooper will say that to him. Look, get off the bus. It's 100 yards, end zone to end zone, all that kind of stuff. Maybe he takes that route. Who knows? I'm not sure.
I don't think it makes any difference. Again, because the game's playing at a neutral site that's so close to each one of the schools, I don't think it makes a difference. I really don't. And I don't think either of the coaches are worried about it. You know, it's going to be a great game. And again, if the weather gets a little inclement, you're playing on an artificial surface that's not going to substantially alter the outcome. You know, a lot of times, the only thing that will even the sides, if one team is significantly better than the other, is the surface, the field that you're playing on. But that's not going to be the case here. But it wouldn't be the case anyway, because we have two evenly matched teams.
I spoke with Brian Cooper, Laurel football coach, not more than an hour ago, and that was one of the questions I asked him about playing at Neshannock, and he was, you know, not too thrilled about the way the WPIAL reached the decision, and said, look, I get it if we have a sloppy field or anything, but our field is in great shape. I would agree with that. I was on the field on Friday night after the game conducting interviews, and the field is in great shape. He said, but at the same time, you know what? That's their decision, and now we have to go play a football game. We have to get ourselves prepared to play a very good Union football team on Friday night. So he's
never want to have my team start thinking about stuff like that. Never. I don't care where we play. We'll play you in the street if we have to. We're going to get ready and we'll be prepared and ready to go. You can't, they talk about distractions. They talk about things, that young men might start thinking about that could distract them for what they really need to do. So I don't think at the end of the day, it's a big deal to either team or either coach. I really don't.
This is the first time in Lawrence County history that two Lawrence County teams will butt heads head-to-head in a matchup in the playoffs, in the district playoffs. So history will be made Friday night at Neshannock. It should be a great game, Larry. Will you be there?
I won't. I won't be there. I have other commitments, but it's going to be a great game. Now, Lawrence County Sportsnet, if they broadcast the game, I'll be watching. That's for sure.
I'm sure they will. That's going to be a great matchup for the county. And before we let you go, just to key in everybody throughout the rest of the week, be sure to check us out on the web, on Gridiron, on our website. Pick up the daily section of the paper. We have plenty of stuff planned. We're going to write separate previews on both games. We will have a feature on the county rivalry between Laurel and Union. And again, as I mentioned, the first time that two county teams will go head to head. I will have a column giving hell to the WPIAL for Neshannock. You wouldn't expect anything else, Larry.
You can't help yourself.
No, I can't. So you'll want to check that out. Be sure to look for anything we have content-wise. Friday will be here before you know it, and it's going to be a great night for high school football.
Yeah, and you guys do a great job. Your coverage is just exquisite. You guys do a great job of covering the game and covering some of the sidebars and getting the appropriate quotes from the players and the coaches. You guys do a great job. You ought to be proud. It's big time stuff. Not every local newspaper does it as well as the Newcastle News, but you guys have been doing it well for 100 years, and it hasn't stopped.
Well, we appreciate that, Larry. Thank you for the kind words. And again, best of luck to our student athletes and coaches, fan bases, what have you. We know we're going to get one team into the semifinals. We're going to try to get two of them. So next week we'll have plenty to talk about. We'll either have one semifinal game or two. We'll find out soon enough. Larry Kelly, thank you for joining us. He's Larry Kelly. I'm Ron Poniewasz. We will see you back here next week on Gridiron.